Welcome to the Leadership Academy. I pray this, that you all are inspired today, that you're inspired in your leadership work in the church. But that is an important component. The other thing I pray is that you rediscover, if you need to, having fun. I was talking to somebody just a few minutes ago, and we talked about how sometimes it's not fun these days. We're working so hard, trying to do so much. Put having fun at the top of the list, please. Have fun with ministry. Have fun with what you're called by God to do. That is, for many of us, a change. And it's to think about how God is calling us to change that I am privileged today to introduce to you two individuals who we have brought into our work at the diocese to help us walk this walk of transformation and change. It's something we should be pretty good with. People who talk about following Jesus Christ and turning around, metanoia, conversion. Not so much. We got work to do on that. And so Jerry Jellison and Sharon Griggs have had an abundance of experience working in systems, changing those systems for greater authenticity, for greater vibrancy, and they're our gift today and the days ahead in our diocese. So Jerry, Sharon, welcome.
Hello, my name is Jerry Jellison. It's a great pleasure to be with you. Our theme this morning is the topic of change, and whether you experience the same world that I do, but it seems as though that's almost the mantra of our times, isn't it? It's just change, change, change. And sometimes it can feel as though everything is changing. At least in the organizations I'm working with, there are many people who feel that way. But I think that if you stand back and take a larger perspective, you realize that no, there are many, many things that remain the same, and we need that stability. I'm a bicycle rider, and normally on a Saturday morning I'd be out riding my bike right now. And one day I was climbing a long hill, and there was a fellow in front of me who had a biking shirt on that had the flag of Brazil. Are you familiar with the flag of Brazil? You are? It's a very interesting flag because it has what looks like a planet in it. It's yellow and green, and in the rings of it are two words. And it's always interesting if a nation decides to put words on its flag and tells you these are important words to them. Do you remember what the words are, sir? They are, and you don't need to understand, you have to understand Portuguese to translate it. One word is ordem, and the other one is O-R-D-E-N, and the other one is progresso. Yes. What does it mean for you, man? Yeah, that's it exactly. And it's a reminder what? That we need both things. We need both things. You can't, it's a scale. You can't put the emphasis solely on one or the other. What I'd like to do today is, and Sharon and I will be doing, is helping help you have an understanding of the environment around you, creating a change-ready environment in which change can take place in the church. This topic of change, let me just talk real generally here. This is a very, very important concept for us as human beings. If you think about it, it is one of the main concepts we use to make sense of our lives. What is history about? It's the story of change, invariably, especially if you like a biography or you're reading about some individual's growth and development over time. If you're trained as I was as a scientist, what is science all about? We say that the purpose of science is to advance knowledge. When you get down into the laboratories, what's it about? It's about she's got a theory, and I know her theory's wrong, and I'm going to prove it wrong, and I want to change. I want to change that dominant view of it. A few years ago, I had the good fortune to work for an extended time in India. And while I was there, I realized that the concept of change is at the core of most of the major religions of the world. And one of the questions that we turn to religion with is, what am I supposed to do with my life here?
And the answer that you invariably get is uniquely grow and develop in some way. And that is about change. In fact, if you're a Buddhist, it is the core assumption of life. You know, the notion in Buddhism is, you know, the change is just everything is changing. Nothing, you can't count on anything to be stable. It's the impermanence. Impermanence is the core notion here. So this topic is a huge, huge topic. And our expertise is really limited to more specific area, this very specific area of how to help organizations change. And to me, organizational change ultimately comes down to it's helping people change. Right? It's all about people. So that's what my presentation I'll show you several models of the change process to help you get the share the understanding that we bring to these efforts. The first is an organizational model. The second one is an individual model, what happens to us as individuals as we go through change. And the third model is one about church growth in particular. I read the program a biographic statement about Sharon and me. It was very nice to see that, but there was one thing that was left out of it, and I should tell it to you right up there. Hi, my name's Sherry Jellison, and I'm her sister. Okay, you should know that about me. I've done research as an academic. I did research on change and resistance to change for years. And it took about 10 years before I finally realized that my delusion that don't you wish other people were as wonderful as you and I are. Life teaches you, no matter what your achievements are, your titles are, anything like that. We're all human beings. And so when we're talking about change and the difficulties of change, guess what? We're all out here. We're all going through this at the same time. And I think, especially as dealing with people, helping people who are resistant to change. When I think about the notion of resistance to change, I go back to, I like blues music. I don't know if everybody here likes blues music or not, but there's an old blues lyric from the beginning of the 20th century. And the language reflects that time period. It's the best definition I know of the blues. I mean, we all get the blues from time to time, or we're down for a few days or whatever. And I've just taken that definition and applied it to resistance. And the lyric is this: the blues is nothing more than a good man feeling bad. And the key implication there is that if you're dealing with somebody who's resistant, I don't want to put you in a box and say, oh, he's a resistant. Our tools that you can use to extend a hand to people who are having difficulty accepting some particular change right now. And what's always in the back of my mind when I'm helping somebody else is that in 2 months, 3 months, guess who's going to need the helping hand? You know, it's going to be me. And it's that dependence that we have on one another. And that circle of life, I think, gives so much meaning and satisfaction to life. Right, so I'm just trying to give you a larger context in which to place some of the ideas that we're going to be talking about. My focus initially will be on sort of some strategic models here to help you understand change. And then Sharon will speak after me, and she'll be talking about sort of some strategical plans that are in the process of developing to help facilitate change within the diocese. Okay? I go by Jerry. Feel free to raise your hand, questions anytime. Here we go. So just the notions of how does change happen inside an organization? And for those of you who have a background in management and so forth, this will be familiar to you. The most basic model is what's called the cascade model. And if you take a simple, everyone with me, I'm not just jumping right into it, and here we go, organization, pyramid structure. All right. But the cascade model starts with this idea, that we have this brilliant leader at the top of our organization. Aren't we grateful to have her, right? Because she's going to do what? She's going to come up with all the ideas that are going to help all of us, right? And so that's what happens is that she comes up with a new idea. She then influences the people in that C-level suite up there, those folks. Once they are converted over, then with the next level, they are converted. Then inside there, you can see the notion of a cascade, right? You're seeing the beautiful waterfall that's cascading down over the stone. And then it comes down to the next level. By the way, in an organization, you can always tell how important you are by how quickly you get involved in these meetings. If you're in the one where there's an audience of hundreds in the room, you're not very important, but there are 10 or 20 people, you feel really good. And this is has been the dominant model of how change takes place in organizations. If you look at it, it assumes that, so I was teasing about the leader, but we do count on the leader to be the person who originates ideas, that the progress throughout the organization is going to be this progressive one from the top down. It'll follow a more or less ordered sequence, having to do with the organizational structure of the organization. Most planning is also done at the top and is done with aids. There are all kinds of formal mechanisms within the organization that's supposed to facilitate the change. And the follower's role is to say, thank goodness for her, and just do whatever she says. If you're in the military, in the past, you know this model. In many organizations, in the 20th century, this was the dominant model of change. But a change has taken place within large organizations, and it's a different model that captures what usually happens. I call it the organic model, and it's always curious to me how often they get called into an organization, and one of the things that we'll do on the first time we meet is that they'll want to describe their organization to me, and they invariably want to talk about the culture. You need to understand our culture, and you need to understand that we have a something culture, whatever it is. I remember working with, it was then Daimler-Benz in Germany, and they said, you need to understand, we have German engineering culture. You know that, hey? We're German, and that means this, and we're engineers, and this means this and this. And I've learned over the years that no matter what people tell me their culture is, if you look down inside the organization, you'll find people and whole units that are doing things completely differently than the dominant culture. You know this experience, it's amazing. Like at Mercedes-Benz, it was the dealerships. They weren't German engineers. They had to sell cars. They had to sell car to customers. They had to be much more customer-focused than the people back in Germany. And so that's what this attempts to do. It attempts to say, look, inside an organization, such as this diocese, yes, there may be a dominant way that things are being done, but there are already segments that are doing things differently. And if you look at what happens over time, is that somebody else notices that, becomes aware of it, and they say, wow, I wonder if that could work for us. And they try. And it's interesting to me that up there in the two little blue spots up there, the higher one that came in second, you might think, oh, that's because they lived or worked next to one another. No, it could be that person up there happened to ride in a carpool with one of these persons down here in the bottom, and then it does not, what I'm saying is, change does not follow these simple structures. And so then it'll come out some more, and then somebody up in the top area gets drifted up, and they start to understand it, and once they understand it, then they tell our esteemed leader, Cordy, they esteemed our esteemed leader, and what she does is she changes the name for this thing, or changes the colors that they use on the brochures to describe it, some crucial thing, right? But fortunately, she did that, right? And then when that happens, then other people are thinking, and then it happens. When I think about this, I always remember, the high school biology, putting the bacteria in the petri dish, and always went out of these just strange forms. And that's what's part of it so much fun about change is that you never know what patterns that it's going to take inside an organization. But notice, the leader's role changes very dramatically here. Because the leaders don't have to be the source of all ideas. In fact, their role switches over to encouraging innovation. My community service activity involves the credit union at the University of Southern California. And for a number of years, I got directly involved in operations of that organization. They were really in trouble. They turned to be, I guarantee you. And fortunately, we got it going, and we could get people in there who actually knew what they were doing. But my role switched from being directly involved in operations operations over to being the chairman of the board for too many years probably. And I realized that my job used to be to come up with the ideas. That's not my job anymore. My job is to get the right people in important places and then protect them. To keep other people away, to stop them from innovating. See, that's the role of the leaders, to create that kind of environment where ideas come up from people. And as I said, progress goes out in all kinds of fascinating directions. That there are multiple centers of initiation of new ideas. The planning is spontaneous, it occurs on the spot. Something isn't working, let's change it, let's do it this way, etc., etc. And the follower's role now becomes one of originating and implementing new ideas. How do I describe this to you? What is the message to you?
No more excuses.
Pardon me?
No more excuses.
No more excuses? Is that what you said? I love that. Yeah, I hope it is. Here's an opportunity. Let me frame it slightly differently. There are all sorts of opportunities. There are opportunities for you. Now, it's very convenient to wait for others and then grumble about what they suggest and just go along with it. But, there are opportunities for you. And that's the approach that Sharon and I, that we'll be taking. That's what informs the approach that we'll take. Is we're counting on it. Change is going to happen in this organization. It's going to happen because your people are involved. You have the ideas that you're willing to step forward and take a leadership role and commit a few more hours a week to help in some initiative get going. So yeah, that's the message I hope that you take away from that, and you can consider as we talk about roles that you can play in some of the things that the initiatives that we're going to discuss. All right, so that was just a way to think about what happens in terms of organizational change. Now let's go over to individual change. And if you look at, you can just chart what changes look like. And basically what we're talking about with change is it's what we do, it's our performance, and then it's looking at that over time. Maybe it's a typical plot, here's where we started, in the typical organization, how long we've been doing things this way, forever, and how do we feel about it? We're proud of it, aren't we? Come on, we call it what? It's our heritage, it's our culture. Trust me, this is not something that's specific to religious organizations. I work with Disney, really, was a wonderful man. He's been dead 20 years, and they were still saying, yes, but what would Walt do? It's a really different economic environment now. But yes, so we tend to glorify the what has been done in the past. We're start doing something new, and it's going to follow a positive trajectory. There are no guarantees here, by the way. But it will look like that. There are lots of different curves here. The change curve trajectory that I find more typical of major changes. Again, I want to emphasize that word major changes. A major change takes place that when you first do something, you've been doing something one way, then you start to do something new, you can anticipate performance is going to do what? It's going to drop down. Don't you experience that in your own life? You get a new piece of electronic equipment or a new software package. Whatever, you go to a new area. I know for me, when I'm in a hotel, I invariably walk out the door and walk the wrong way toward the elevator and get lost. And once you're there for a day, you learn the shortcuts and so forth. You see that similar kind of thing here, but then there'll be a state period here we go down where things will bottom out. It's not necessarily getting better, but at least it's not getting worse. And then you turn the corner, and here's part of the good news of change, that once you come around that corner, it tends to accelerate very dramatically, and finally out to stage 4, it supersedes where it began. All right, so that's what you can expect in terms of behavior. Let's go through the curve and just look at how do people react to, and again, I'm focusing here on major changes. If you look, there are typically 3 broad patterns of reaction. There'll be some people who will fully accept the change, right? You come up with you're down your little sphere of influence, and you come up with that great idea. You have some people around you who accept it, and they're saying, well, what a great idea. Hey, can I be on the team? I want to do that. I want to do this. Yeah, there aren't many of those people, but yeah, I'm always very, very grateful for that small group of people. Then there'll be other people who will do what? Wow, that sounds like an interesting idea. Yeah, I can see that. And you know, unlikely to get much out of them other than the head nods, but they have real value to us. Okay, we're not going to write anybody off, as I said before, even the people who are resistant to change, because I'm a great believer in our capacity to change at any time in life. I know most psychologists tell you that people got formed one way, and that's the way they're going to be forever. Pretty happy thought, isn't it? I find that one of the most depressing thoughts ever, that we can't change. It's a ridiculous thought to me. And change takes place all the time. Look at you. You're not the same person you were when you graduated from high school, except for those young women, those lovely young women that were here just a while. No, change. Just look at yourself. How much you've changed in how many ways. And see, it's like that progressive order. We tend to focus so much more on the order than on all the progress we've made in life. So they're typically, the percentage of these people can vary from one situation to another. I'm just saying, don't be surprised if you get people who are not fully committed. Don't be surprised if you have people who are ambivalent, who have mixed feelings about this. There are ways to help all of those people move forward. But to think about how many people go forward, let me just quickly take you through and show you the typical thoughts and feelings that people in that arena who have mixed feelings or are resistant, what are the thoughts and feelings that they typically have? So imagine here that at the beginning of stage one, and whatever change is going to begin, you announce the change, and what are people thinking and feeling? Okay, that group of people who have mixed feelings, that are ambivalent, and the ones who are resistant, what are their thoughts? What are their thoughts? And what are they thinking? Come on, you announce this great idea of yours, and what are those people thinking?
Why is it working?
Okay, the dominant emotion over here is going to be fear, yes. And the thoughts that they have? Okay, and anxiety over there too. Okay, and hope, we hope they have some hope, yes. What other thoughts do they have though? There you go, there it is. You can experience that. Yeah. Yes, thank you. Yeah. Well, I love this one. Why are we doing this? Come on, it's your idea, and when they ask you why, you do what? You explain, don't you? You go through and give them the reasons, because you're sure if they understood, see, if they had the big picture view that you do, you're sure that once they understood the logic behind this, they'd say what? Gee, thanks for explaining that to me. I want to get right on it. Is that how they react? Oh, okay. Yeah, this is a little tip to an advanced lesson, and that is that the tool we turn to most commonly to influence other people to change is almost useless when you're dealing with people in that red segment down there. Okay, but there are other tools you can use. We'll teach them to you later. Talk about them later. But I just want to show you that communication. We were told that communication is, virtually the answer to any interpersonal problems. Communicate. And there's no doubt, and I always start, and always advocate that. But for people who are resistant, they would like nothing more than to communicate with you. In fact, I think we ought to maintain this dialogue, because now it's really useful. Why don't we meet, actually, next week's bad, but the week after that, we can get together. See, they want to stretch out the communication as long as possible, because as long as we're communicating, what am I not doing? Yeah, you see whose self-interest that communication can be. All right, so if you look at common thoughts that people have, here are typical thoughts of the people with mixed feelings. As Tim said, the dominant emotion over here is anxiety. There's self-doubt. Very frequently, I say people, and every time I'm saying people, who am I talking about? You and me. It's all of us. I'm saying people. This just happens to us all. We have self-doubts. And people won't always voice that to you, but it's down inside there. Will I be able to be successful in this environment? It's just important, I think, if you're going to help other people to be aware that that's not what you're feeling. All right. Look at this J group. Okay, so that's stage one. The message is, look, those are just normal thoughts and feelings of people. You're going to work with people, yeah, that's what you should expect. No condemnation or anything, it's just, that's reality. Think about this J curve in topographical terms, all right? We're starting where? On the plateau. Can you see it there, Maurice? And we want to get there. Up there at the mountaintop. Can you see it up there, Maurice? What's it going to be like up there, Maurice? It's going to be wonderful, isn't it? By the way, you better be sold on this if you're the leader, okay? Because there are going to be a lot of forces coming at you, trying to drag you, so why it's not. Okay? But to get there, we might have quite a journey to take. Where is the most difficult point in that entire journey?
Bottom of 3.
Going from stage 1 to stage 2. Okay, it's right there where you go from stage 1 to stage 2, because notice you're going over a cliff. That's what I said. Think about it in topographical terms. You're going over a cliff, and this cliff, Tony, is an emotional cliff. Okay, it's an emotional cliff for people, because the closer we get in time to that cliff, the stronger the anxiety becomes, the more sure we are that this is going to be a bad idea. The best way I have found to understand this is with the experience I had as a child. Maybe you had a similar experience. I think I was about 8 years old, 8 or 9 years old. There was a time my father came to me and said, "Son, time for you to become a man." Yeah, I laughed too. Okay, yeah, but what's involved exactly? Right? Now, in my case, what was involved was I had to learn to sleep totally in the dark. Because up until then, they had always left the hallway. And yeah, they closed the door, but they left it cracked open 3 or 4 inches. But an adult you still use a nightlight, don't you? I understand, I can see it. That's what on your face told me. You were a little scared there too. All right. So big night comes, mom and dad love me, and they love me, which is good, everything is fine. And then for the first time, they closed that door the whole way. You know, in my case, there were no buttons on the floor, so there was a little strip of light coming in underneath the door. And I thought, it's not much, but maybe I can make it through the night with that. But then, guess what they did? Click, up went the whole light, and you're laying there in the dark feeling what? Scared. Okay, and when we're laying in the dark, what is it we are afraid of? What are we afraid of? The most common answer here is we're afraid of the unknown. What's your name? My guess is that you knew, at least you thought you knew, what was out there in the dark, didn't you? Come on, you had it. It wasn't just the unknown. Let's be honest with one another. You knew what was out there. What was out there? Well, look at this. You're missing the tone of voice here. Monsters, obviously, yeah. You not only knew what was out there, you knew where they were. Where were they, Carol?
Right outside.
Oh, outside the door. Where else were they? Come on. Under the bed. Yeah. Anybody worried about the closet? Okay, honestly, the bedroom that I had as a child, the closet in that bedroom had the trapdoor to the attic. It's the interstate. You know, every child knows what? No, monsters are nocturnal feeders. Okay, they're hungry. I can hear them moving around up there. I just figured they're going down through my room, grab me, eat me, and then go to the rest of the house. And we can laugh about this, all right? We can laugh about this. But look. Notice that in the face of uncertainty, people imagine monsters. And if you're going to help somebody through, you're going to help people through this process, it's really important to understand what are some of their monsters, even just a few of the monsters that people are concerned about. Right? So when you're thinking about helping somebody else who does have mixed feelings about this, it's important to understand what are their fears. And often this takes repeated conversations before you really get down. All right, despite the protests of people with mixed feelings and resistance, you go ahead and implement the change, and look what's happening. Things are going down. What are people telling you now? All those people were hesitating. Come on, give us the tone of voice, dude. Hands on hits, I told you so. I mean, we're all being self-righteous this way, aren't we? Oh yeah, how far down do they think the curve is going to go? You know, it's just going to keep on dropping. Okay, so here are typical thoughts that people have. There's a sense of panic, sense of failure. Oh yeah, people want to escape, and you're laughing. Well, guess what? I guarantee you, when things go bad, people are going to start telling you what? How good it was in the old days. We have this tendency to idealize the past. And again, if you think, oh, that doesn't apply to me, yes it does. Come on. Buyer's remorse. You had that experience, you make a big ticket purchase, and you come home that night, and you're saying what? Oh my gosh, what have I done? How come you're returning this thing, right? And say just that once you make a commitment, then these negative feelings come up. When you come to stage, I just want to alert you to something here. Leaders in this organization, you who are always lay leaders, either whether are the clergy or a lay leader, it is very easy to get excited about ideas when what we're doing is just talking about them. But when you actually start having to take action, and the actions become costly, you make mistakes. It's not going as well as you thought. It's astounding how quickly you realize, cognitively, I was out there in stages. Cognitively, I understood the top of the mountain, but emotionally, I'm not quite there yet. And so you have to be prepared for this. And even leaders will now start to pull, some of them will start to, those people who are really ready to go, they'll start to pull back away in this situation. That's all I'm trying to do here, is just to alert you to that possibility. When we come to stage 3, here are typical thoughts that people have, a sense of discouragement down there in stage 3. And although on the graph it always has time, always moving forward, I think the better metaphor for time when you're down in stage 3 driving a change forward is that of a pendulum. You'll go through a couple of weeks where everything is going good and you're thinking, we turned the corner, didn't we? Hey, we got it. And then you come in the next week and what happens? It goes back the other way, right? And so this is part of the reason it's such a challenge, I think, for the leader. Stage 3 is the most challenging. It is to help people keep moving through there because you'll get discouraged because you have these little experiences of having your hopes raised and then your hopes are dashed down there. But when the curves finally start to go up with a sense of relief, and you come to stage 4, here are the kind of thoughts that people have. People actually start enjoying doing things a new way, and they will tell you they enjoy it. Hey, we did this, and it was so great, and this and this and this happened. Whereas before, you had to give them lots of praise and encouragement, tell them good things are going to happen. Now they are actually experiencing it. Later, I'll show you when we meet again how we can use stage 4 to our advantage. People gain confidence when they're out of stage 4. What do they gain confidence in? We. What do we gain confidence in when we're out of stage 4? We gain confidence in ourselves, absolutely. The process, the new way of doing things, and we also gain confidence in the leader. That's right. And see, here it is. It's out in stage 4 where you really get these big shifts in terms of how people think and feel. When you come to stage 5 of this process, here are the kind of thoughts that people have. Why did I wait so long? Have that in any of those in your life? We all don't we? And I've actually done research on this where I asked people, why did you wait so long? Actually, it turns out that the more interesting question was, and what was it that got you to finally change? And there are two answers that are common here. One of them was necessity. I have to. And one of the lessons I've learned about human beings is that it's not simply a matter of the wolf has to be at the door. Often the wolf has to be where? Inside the house, in the bedroom, over top of your salad. It's amazing how long we can wait, okay, until the floodwaters are over our ankles before we really start to take action. So there's no doubt necessity plays a role. But you know what the most common answer is? The most common answer is someone else helped me. If left to my own devices, I would have always done it that way. I would have never tried this. But my spouse, my partner, my neighbor, my life, my grandchildren, my granddaughters, they'll get me to do things like I would have thought of doing. And guess what? It's fun. I enjoy doing that. And see, that's the role that you have an opportunity to play. You have an opportunity to extend a hand to the people around you who are hesitant and mixed feelings to help them change and move forward. So yeah, real sense of joy here. Another thing that's so nice, I call it renewal. If you have a better word for it, I'm really welcome. But it is, we start to change our definition of ourselves. It's like if you do this, and especially if you go through 2 or 3 changes, you start to change your definition of who you are as a person. And I think for me, that I really loved and appreciated Jim's beginning by thinking about this being fun. Learning is fun. Growth is fun. We feel terrific when we come in. It's a real sense of joy when you get up there at the top of the mountain and you achieve that goal. And then when you get this sense of, hey, the old dog can't learn new tricks, it's a phenomenal feeling. that should work. All right, a couple of implications of this. Our goal is going to be to accelerate the change process, so instead of going to that day, that's what I'm aiming for. I work with a big athletic equipment company. They didn't like this as well. They preferred to look at that. Final note here. We talk about making transformational change inside an organization, such as inside your diocese or inside a particular church. But if you look inside what's called a transformational change, what will you see? That's what you'll see. Okay, the job of implementing change, okay, and that's where I work. I'm an implementation guy. This is way down in the trenches. It's not, if you compare the beginning with the end, you could say strategically this was a transformational change. But that probably took 2 years, 3 years. If you look down much more closely at what's actually happening, what you'll see are J's, as illustrated there. Those small J's, after a while, once you get 1, 2, 3, 4 going and they're successful, the next ones go much faster. But all I want to do is say, this is where we're going to be working. We're going to be working down there in the trenches, helping individual people do things, to help move change forward. All right. So ways to increase engagement in the church. There are 3 broad models. These are what are called ideal types in sociology. They tend to portray things in really extreme terms. The reality is always that there's a blend of these in almost any organization. The first model, this is impossible to read, I have it for you in a shorter version here. So we look at 3 models. One is called the attractional model, which is more common in the 80s and 90s. The missional model, which has been more popular in this century, and another model that's just emerging, which is called the relational model. All right, so we've switched from organizational change, individual change. Now we're talking about how strategies within the diocese. In the attractional model, I'm just give you historical perspective on this. One of the benefits of this, for a specific church, the attractional model, let me lay this out. The records is convenient, it's comfortable, it's community. If you think about the mega churches, this is what they've done. They have pews like cushion pews, but you have seats there, huge parking lots, everything. It's just made it's no longer Sunday at 11. It's Sunday at 3 different times. It's Saturday evening. It's Wednesday evening, etc., etc. And again, many churches, most of the churches in the diocese are already doing things like that, making hours. So they have made it convenient, made it easy, made it comfortable, and there is a sense of community inside. This is something often overlooked, is the extent to which that attractional model really builds on community. For the benefits for observers, so there are people who come and there are other people who learn about it. You're going to that because on Monday morning we're saying, well, how was your weekend, Betsy? And Betsy's saying, oh gosh, I went to church and this happened, and I'm over there, stirring my coffee. And afterwards, where is that church? What is that, Betsy? It's like, that we can, I will indirectly learn about it, and that may lead to me participating. And for church members, the primary benefit here is seeing the church grow. Let's say they're very popular in the 80s and 90s, still widely used, and it has definitely, you look at mega churches, they have grown. Hard to argue with that. Can't argue about what happens inside, but in terms of growth, it's there. The benefits in the missional model is that people, and I know that there are many missionary missionals, hard word for me, missional activities going on inside the diocese. But the experience, remember to experience God by giving, and to see it as part of you participating and building that into your life. The direct recipients, often their physical needs are met and satisfied in some way, and they get to see the living gospel. This is not just something that's in a book or in a sanctuary. No, here's a man who lives his life this way. It has a very different impact on him. And observers, if people are observing you doing this, afterwards I go and say, Jim, how do you get involved? What's about? What's happening there? All right, so it's another way that way to encourage membership. And church members, they get the satisfaction of living in Christ-like life here. So it's huge sense of satisfaction. The relational model is built largely about creating successively smaller communities inside a diocese and inside a church. And the way we think about it largely is in terms of creating small groups. By small, I mean anywhere from 3 to 10 or 12 people, really small groups inside churches. People who meet on a regular basis, right? And so that becomes, and I'm sure you have, a group of friends. Some of you are blessed by having a group of friends that you meet on a regular basis. I like ride with a group of guys, and we ride a little bit, and we solve the problems of the world, and we ride home. But it's that satisfaction that you have from meeting people on a regular basis. Maybe you're in a book club, something like that. That happens. So for a specific church, the benefit of doing this is it draws new people into the church. It makes the church more accessible. And people build meaningful relationships. It turns out that having meaningful relationships is a core incentive for people for coming to a church and for them staying inside a church. I'm sure you can testify that. Direct recipients, they feel connected to a small community. If you look at most of us in our contemporary lives, and I said change. At the very beginning, what do all that change mean? We're not as connected to other people as we were. Certainly isn't, I don't know any kind of environment I lived in as a kid, but we knew all the neighbors, we played with all the neighbors, and just went outside, and Mom didn't even say, all she said was, back to dinner at 5:30, that was it. And there's something you're in that community, and we need that. There's a great sense of isolation in contemporary American society. And so this one is an attempt to address part of that. Observers, again, it's a similar sort of process here, only because some of the small groups might focus on things that are directly relevant. They might have a theological orientation, they might have a more secular orientation. I want to get involved. I always want to do like right now, gosh, I need to lose weight too, and whatever, I'm having trouble getting a job right now. Whatever the theme is, that will happen. And for church members, it builds new relationships with people, and for those who continue down that path, it's an opportunity for them to fulfill their spiritual needs. All right, so all I've done here is just really trying to outline for you three broad models, what happens in terms of organizational change, what happens to individuals going through it, and then a model for traditional ways to create more engagement within your diocese and within your church. Sharon will now talk a little bit about some of the plans that we're developing to help with that.
Well, I'm not going to be talking as long as Jerry did, so I'm the closing act here. But what we wanted to talk to you about at this juncture is what we're calling Project 2020. So when we met first with the bishop, he said he wanted some help in identifying ways to make the church, and when I say the church, however you want to define it, because we're really open to what church is and what it may be, but how to make the church more relevant, more vital, and more compelling as we move forward into the next several decades. So that's kind of a big thing to bite off all at once. So we thought, let's just look for the short term at what we can do in the next 5 years. So hence the name Project 2020. And there are 3 components of Project 2020. You see them up here. There's visioning, there's innovation, and there's implementation. One thing we don't want to do is throw the baby out with the bathwater. So there have been more than one attempts to write the vision, and we want to start there looking at the visions that have already been written and move forward from there. We want to look, when it comes to innovation, and what's going on in the individual churches that's different and new and drawing people and making church more compelling than perhaps it has been in the past, or more relevant to successive generations. We want to look at what's going on, and then we want to build on that, while at the same time doing some brainstorming to come up with more innovative ideas. And then, of course, once we come up with those ideas, there's the implementation. What I wanted to demonstrate with this diagram is that each of those phases is not discrete and it doesn't end. There's feedback from the vision to the implementation, from the implementation to the innovation. So everything is feedback, feedback, feedback. And also this is intended to be a very bottom-up effort. Yes, the bishop will be leading the inspirational effort. Jerry and I have expertise in how to facilitate some of the things going on, but this is not us telling you what to do. It's us helping you to use your own creativity to come up with all sorts of ideas that will continue to vitalize and revitalize the diocese. So, I apologize that this is really very difficult to read from where you sit, but each of these three areas has 5 stages. And you'll see for the visioning, right now we're in the phase where we're doing the shared orientation, which is Jerry and me getting familiar with everybody in your organization and doing a research on what's been going on and what's taking a survey of the kinds of activities that are going on in each of the churches to see where there are little pockets of innovation. We want to continue to vision, as I said, starting from where we have some drafts already, and move forward with that. We want to continue to do education around change, creating a change-ready environment, building teams, how to brainstorm effectively, how to hold meetings effectively, whatever you think you could benefit from in terms of the experience we have in leading groups. And then coming up toward the end of the summer, the beginning of the fall, with a new consolidated vision statement, which will have many iterations, both top down and bottom up, so everybody who's interested in having a say in what this vision statement looks like will have the opportunity to add your 2 cents at some level, and we really, really want to encourage that. And then we hope to have a new, although we know it will be temporary, vision statement for the November conference. Oops. Then we have a flow chart here for the 4 stages of idea generation. We want to start out by gathering ideas. We would like to have innovation groups in various churches. We'll probably select, with the help of the bishop and the executive council, some pilot churches to work with, and really have some nice brainstorming sessions. And from there, we will come up with a condensed list of the ideas that everyone has. We'll also create some evaluation criteria, because we want the new ideas to be consistent with the vision that we're creating, and make sure that when you're putting all the energy into some new ideas, that in fact it is something that's innovative and is going to get us to that place which is creating a compelling church, a vital church, and a church that still, even though it's innovative, is always anchored in the path of Jesus Christ. We will, after we come up with these ideas, have a vetting system for evaluating what ideas may be best to get some financial support from the diocese, and then we'll roll them out, and there'll be pilot projects, and if they're successful, we'll be able to roll them out in different areas in different churches over time. And finally, we have a flowchart for implementation. And once again, this is based on, well, I should say once again, that this is based on the relational model that Jerry was just talking about. We'll have a different implementation plan for the attractional model, we'll another one for the missional model, but just for example, we put up this based on the relational model. We'll create an inventory of the groups, the small groups that are going on now. Then we will decide on some new projects to launch. We'll do publicity about them. We'll share successes. We're imagining an congregational council where people will be able to share what's going well and sharing lessons learned from congregation to congregation. Then we'll see what lessons we learned from these new small groups and share those lessons, and then at the end we'll feed them back into the vision. So there we see what we were looking at earlier, that we have these 3 areas of focus, but each one is going to feed back and continue the iterative process of creating better and better visions, better and better idea generation, better and better ideas for implementation. As I was saying, this is not the bishop or Sharon and Jerry saying this is how it should be done or doing the work. This is about facilitating all your great ideas and getting you, the lay leaders and the clergy leaders, very involved in shaping the changed environment.